There is something no one ever told you, and it is not a secret hidden behind locked doors or buried in old books. It is something far closer, something sitting right beneath the surface of every choice you have made for years. The moment you stop expecting anything from a man, you do not lose something. You recover everything you forgot belonged to you in the first place. Now, that sentence alone might feel uncomfortable, almost like a finger pressing on a bruise you did not realize was still tender. Stay with me here, because what unfolds in the next few minutes is going to reach places inside you that most conversations never dare to touch. Think back to a very specific instant in your life. Not a dramatic collapse, not a screaming match or a door slamming shut. Something quieter. A slow, almost imperceptible shift, like the tide pulling away from shore without making a single sound. The morning you woke up and realized your first thought was no longer about him. The evening you placed your phone face down on the table and felt no urge to flip it over. The afternoon you caught yourself breathing deeper than you had in months, and you could not explain why. People around you probably misread what was happening. Some assumed you had grown cold, others whispered that you had given up entirely. But deep inside your own quiet truth, you recognized something different. It was not numbness, it was the end of a very old confusion, one that had been running your life like an invisible program you never agreed to install. For years, maybe even decades, you mistook longing for connection. You confused patience with loyalty. You believed that suffering proved the depth of your love, as if the size of your pain measured the sincerity of your heart. No one sat you down and spelled it out clearly, but the message seeped in through every fairy tale, every song, every sidewise glance from older women who carried their own silence like an heirloom. The unspoken rule was simple. If you truly loved someone, you endured, you held on, you absorbed, you bent yourself into whatever shape kept the house standing. And that belief wrapped itself around you like a garment stitched too tight, one you never dared remove because everyone around you seemed to think it fit perfectly. But here's what you need to understand. That belief was never yours. It belonged to a long chain of women who came before you, mothers and grandmothers, and unnamed silhouettes who clenched their jaws so the walls would not crumble. Somewhere in the basement of your unconscious mind, their memory kept working, sending you patterns, reflexes, and expectations you mistook for instinct, but were actually inherited. Jung had a name for this invisible weight, the collective shadow. Not a monster lurking in a dark corner, but a deep layer of unprocessed pain passed down through generations, and no one ever helped you see it for what it was. So you waited. Not always for one particular man. Sometimes you were simply waiting to be noticed without having to perform, to be chosen without conditions attached, to be held without needing to beg for it. And every time that waiting met silence, you did not break apart. You adapted. Your smile stretched a little wider to cover the gap. Your generosity grew a little larger to earn what should have been given freely. You became the woman everyone called strong, while no one measured the true cost of that strength. The face you showed the world, that carefully polished exterior, is what Jung described as the persona, a role you rehearsed so thoroughly that it nearly replaced the real you underneath. Then one day, something cracked. Not in a spectacular way. It happened in a detail so small most people would have missed it entirely. A kind word that unexpectedly brought tears to your eyes. A glance you could not hold because the weight behind it was suddenly unbearable. An ordinary evening where you sat on the edge of your bed and could no longer remember who was waiting for whom. Most people would call that a breakdown. It was the opposite. It was the beginning of a return, a journey back toward a version of yourself you had shelved so long ago that her face became almost unrecognizable. Inside every woman lives an inner portrait of the masculine,
Not a real man, not a specific memory, but a blurred imprint assembled from every significant male voice that ever mattered. The father who was either absent or overwhelming, the lover who made promises he never intended to honor, the brother who sealed his emotions behind a wall of silence, the first boy who taught you that your body was your only currency. Jung called this inner figure the animus. When it remains unexamined, it quietly steers your choices from the shadows. It draws you toward men who mysteriously resemble the wound you never resolved. Every relationship then becomes an unconscious attempt to heal something you are projecting onto another person without even realizing it. And of course, that person cannot carry a weight that does not belong to him. He does not even know he is being asked to repair something that existed long before he arrived. This is why certain breakups hollow you out more than others. Not because the man across from you mattered more, but because when he left, a fragment of your own self departed with him. Pay close attention to what is really unfolding here. The emptiness you feel in those moments is not always about missing someone else. It is about missing yourself. The part of you that was deposited, handed over, abandoned inside a man's gaze and never retrieved. If you're hearing something in these words that resonates, if a quiet voice inside you is saying, "Yes, this is exactly what I have been carrying," then do something right now. Hit that subscribe button below. Not because I'm asking for a number, but because this space was built for moments like the one you are standing in. Every week, content arrives here that peels back another layer of what no one else is willing to name. Joining this community means you will never have to decode these truths alone again. So when I say a woman who expects nothing from men becomes powerful, I am not describing distrust. I am not talking about shutting your heart behind a wall or plotting revenge. I am describing the precise instant when she gathers back everything she had scattered outward, the energy, the confidence, the tenderness she always aimed at someone else, and finally redirects it inward. The power I am referring to is nothing loud. It does not announce itself on social media with golden letters or borrowed quotes. It settles in slowly, the way solid ground returns after years of relentless rain. You notice it in simple things. Morning arrives and your first thought is no longer an anxiety attached to someone else's mood. Night falls and silence no longer frightens you because it is no longer hollow. It is inhabited by you. Jung named this process individuation, not a clinical term for selfishness, but the patient path through which you stop living through others and begin existing from your own center. And that center is not constructed by reading inspirational quotes at sunrise. It is forged in choices nobody witnesses, saying no without guilt for the very first time, spending a Saturday evening alone and feeling no shame about it, leaving a message unanswered because the old urgency no longer applies, refusing to justify your silence to people who never genuinely tried to understand your words. There is a paradox here that very few grasp. The less you search outside yourself, the more something authentic can finally reach you. Not because the universe rewards wisdom with gifts, but because once the desperate need quiets down, your vision clears. What you perceive then is no longer a fantasy. It is an actual human being, complete with flaws, unhealed scars, and his own shadowed corners. For the first time, you can look at him without silently begging him to rescue you. And he, for the first time, can meet you without sensing a chasm he is expected to fill. That's where a relationship stops being a repair job and transforms into a genuine encounter. But that encounter cannot exist until you have found your way back to yourself. Finding your way back is not a poetic metaphor.
It is a daily decision, sometimes exhausting, often wordless, rarely celebrated. The decision to stop running from whatever rises to the surface when the noise fades. The choice to face the parts of yourself you once judged too dark, too demanding, too intense to reveal. Those parts are not your enemies. They're the guardians of everything real inside you. The anger you buried because someone told you it looked ugly on a woman. The sorrow you disguised because it made everyone around you uncomfortable. The desire you muted because it left you exposed. All of that belongs to you, and all of it has been waiting quietly for a very long time. Not inside a psychology textbook, not exclusively in a therapist's office, though a good therapist can help you hear it more clearly. But in that whisper you catch when you are finally alone and you stop stuffing the emptiness with noise. The woman you become when you expect nothing is not a hardened woman. She is more tender than before, because her warmth no longer depends on someone else's response. More liberated, because her worth is no longer a question that rises with every glance received or missed. She does not ask to be loved the way someone asks permission to exist. She exists first. If love arrives, it finds her already standing on her own 2 feet. And that is where everything shifts in how others perceive her. Because a woman who no longer begs for anyone's attention radiates something language struggles to capture. It is not coldness. It is an inner steadiness so rare that it unsettles every person who crosses her path. Jung once wrote that you do not become luminous by staring at the light, you become luminous by making your own darkness conscious. That darkness is not the grand tragedies of your story. It is the small daily surrenders. The moments you said yes to avoid losing something that was never truly yours. The times you offered a smile to spare someone who never hesitated to wound you. The occasions you pretended to be fine because nobody around you had the bandwidth to ask how you really felt. Each of those instants deposited a thin film of silence over your inner voice. And what you are experiencing now, this withdrawal, this slowness, this new distance that occasionally worries you, is not a retreat. It is an excavation. You are peeling away layers, one by one, not to become a different person, but to finally let the woman beneath the masks and the expectations breathe. There will be days when this journey feels painfully slow. Mornings when the old ache returns uninvited, familiar as a melody you never chose to learn, yet somehow know by heart. Moments when you catch yourself still reaching for a sign, a word, a look that would confirm you matter. That is not a relapse. It is proof the transformation is underway. Deep wounds do not mend in a straight line. They mend in spirals, circling back through familiar territory, but each revolution carries you a little higher, a little clearer, a little further from your knees. So stop expecting. Not because you deserve nothing, but because what you truly deserve cannot arrive from the outside. It emerges from the territory you are reclaiming right now, word by word, breath by breath, morning by morning. It rises from the woman standing exactly where you stand at this very moment, the woman who is beginning to realize she never needed anyone to save her. She only needed to recognize herself. And that is precisely what is happening, right here, right now.